The poor farmer accidentally walked into a blind date and met the paralyzed princess. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. Lucas Weber hurried across the gravel path, the rain clinging to his coat like stubborn fingers. He carried 2 crates of fresh vegetables, their wooden edges biting into his palms. The imperial gardens stretched around him in quiet order, but he barely saw anything. An attendant had waved him forward, pointing toward a pavilion he'd never heard of, and he feared arriving late more than getting lost. He reached the marble steps and glanced around. No cooks, no servants. Only silence. He hesitated, unsure, but the wind pushed at his back as if urging him inside. He stepped through the doorway, wiping the rain from his brow. A soft voice rose from within. It wasn't annoyed. It wasn't startled. It sounded curious. He lifted his head. A young woman sat near the window, a book resting lightly in her hands. Her gown was delicate, trimmed with lace, and the chair she occupied had been crafted with a level of care he had never seen. She watched him with calm interest, as though it were the most natural thing for a farmer to appear in a royal pavilion without warning. He froze. Words vanished from his mind. She closed the book. "May I help you?" He swallowed. "Forgive me, your highness. I was told to deliver these to the palace kitchens. I fear I entered by mistake." A faint smile touched her lips. A mistake, perhaps, but not an unpleasant one. "And whom do I have the honor of addressing?" Lucas felt his face burn. "Lucas Weber, Princess. I meant no disrespect." "Disrespect?" She shook her head. "On the contrary, you look far too anxious to offend anyone." Her gentle tone made him stand straighter, though he still clutched the crates awkwardly. He knew of Princess Amalia von Hohenberg, the Emperor's daughter, admired for her grace, pitied for her paralysis, guarded from the world. Yet he had never imagined standing before her. She gestured toward the crates. "Fresh from the countryside?" "Yes, Princess. My family farm lies near the foothills. We send produce every week." "Then you must know the land better than anyone in this palace," she said softly. "I envy that." He blinked at her honesty. Most nobles he had met, very few, truthfully, spoke in layered phrases that hid more than they revealed. Her openness unsettled him, but also drew him in. "I don't know if I know anything worth envying," he murmured. She tilted her head. "The fields, the air, the freedom to walk wherever you wish. Are these things not precious?" He glanced at her chair. His heart tightened. "They are, Princess." A quiet moment stretched between them, strangely peaceful. The rain tapped faintly on the window beside her, filling the silence with a soft rhythm. Lucas shifted, unsure whether to bow, retreat, or continue holding the crates until his arms fell off. The princess noticed his discomfort. "You may set them down, Mr. Weber." He stepped forward cautiously and placed the crates on a nearby table. Amalia watched him with that same calm curiosity, though he felt as though she saw far more than he wished to reveal. She spoke again. "You are not from Vienna, are you?" "No, Princess, I grew up on the farm. This is only my 3rd time in the city. Then this place must seem overwhelming." "It does," he admitted. "Everything here feels larger, sharper, and colder?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. "Sometimes." She released a soft breath, almost a sigh. "I find it so as well." Before he could reply, footsteps echoed in the hallway, quick, purposeful, and growing louder. Amalia straightened slightly, her expression shifting. Lucas's chest tightened. "Are you expected here, Mr. Weber?" she whispered. "No, Princess, I shouldn't even be in this room." "Then you must stand behind that curtain, quickly." He blinked. "What?" Please." Her voice carried a sudden urgency. "If they find you here, it will be misunderstood." He didn't question further. He moved behind the curtain, pressing himself against the wall. His breath came shallow, and he prayed the crates would not betray him. The door handle turned. A tall minister stepped inside, his expression rigid. "Your Highness, forgive my intrusion. I came to inform you that your suitor's carriage has been delayed. He should arrive shortly." Amalia's voice remained calm. "Thank you, Minister." The minister's gaze swept the room. He paused, noticing the crates. His eyes narrowed. "What is this?" "A delivery," she said smoothly. "They were brought earlier." "By whom?" "A servant, I believe." She folded her hands. "I did not ask his name." Lucas clenched his jaw in the shadows. Her lie was gentle, protective, a kindness he didn't deserve yet desperately needed. The minister grunted. "I will send someone to remove them." He glanced toward the window. "The rain has caused some disruption. The gardens are flooded in places." "I see." Another pause. The princess did not flinch. The minister finally bowed. "I shall return when the suitor arrives." When he left and the door closed, Lucas exhaled shakily. He stepped out from behind the curtain, feeling foolish and grateful and terrified all at once. Princess Amalia observed him with quiet concern. "Are you unharmed?" "I shouldn't have been here," he said. "I've caused trouble already." "You caused no trouble," she replied. "You simply walked through the wrong door. That hardly seems a crime worth panic." He shook his head. "If they had found me—" "Yes." Her voice softened. "I know, but nothing happened." He stared at her, unsure how she could remain so composed. She studied him for a moment. "Tell me, Mr. Weber, do you always worry so easily?" "Only when I'm standing in the wrong place in the Imperial Gardens, Princess." She laughed, a small warm sound that seemed to light the room more than the dull grey sky outside. "You speak plainly. That is rare here. Plain speech is all I know, and I find it refreshing." He looked down, uncertain how to respond. Her attention unsettled him, not because she was royalty, but because she seemed to see him not as a worker or an intruder, but as a person with thoughts worth hearing. "You should go now," she said gently. "Before someone else comes." "Yes, Princess." But he didn't move. Neither did she. A moment hung between them, fragile and unexplainable. She broke it softly. "Forgive their scolding, Mr. Weber. People in this palace often fear shadows. They see danger where there is none." He met her gaze. "I don't want to bring you any grief." "You have not," she answered. "If anything, you brought a little light into an ordinary afternoon." His heart stumbled. He had no words for that. "Please," she added, "leave through the side door. It opens to a quiet path. No one will question you." He nodded. "Thank you, Princess." As he reached the doorway, she called gently, "Mr. Weber." "Yes." "Will you return to the palace again?" "Not here, just to deliver your produce." "If they still allow me, yes." "Good." Her voice warmed. "Then I hope our paths cross again, even if only by chance." He bowed awkwardly, stepped out, and closed the door behind him. His steps were slow at first, his mind fogged with confusion and wonder. The rain had softened into a mist, brushing his cheeks as he crossed the garden. He tried to calm himself. It was nothing. A mistake. A brief conversation between two strangers. He'd return to the farm, laugh about his foolishness, and forget this ever happened. But he knew he wouldn't forget. Not her calm eyes, not her gentle humor, not the way she had protected him without hesitation. He reached the archway that led back toward the service courtyard. The stones glistened with rain, and the air held a faint chill. He adjusted his coat and prepared to slip away unnoticed. Then he heard it behind him, sharp, quick, unmistakable. Footsteps, approaching fast, too fast to pretend he belonged there. The door handle behind him turned. Lucas turned just as two palace officials stepped into the courtyard. Their expressions tightened the moment they saw him. One of them, a sharp-faced man with silver hair, pointed directly at him. "You there!" "Stop!" Lucas froze. His breath clouded in the damp air, and his heart thudded painfully against his ribs. He forced his voice steady. "Yes, sir?" The officials approached with measured steps, the kind that carried authority without needing volume. The silver-haired man looked him over as if cataloguing every flaw. "State your business in this part of the palace." I delivered vegetables to the kitchens," Lucas said. "I was directed through the gardens." The man frowned. "Through the gardens? Who told you that?" "One of the attendants, sir." "I may have misunderstood." "May have," the second official echoed. His tone carried disbelief. "The kitchens are nowhere near the imperial pavilions. You should know the proper route by now." "I thought I did." The silver-haired man folded his hands behind his back. "And yet you were seen coming from the direction of Princess Amalia's private quarters." Lucas's stomach dropped. "Sir, I swear, I didn't know—" "Enough," the man snapped. "Your explanation will be given to the minister. Come with us." Lucas looked around helplessly, though he had no idea who might appear to help him. No one knew him here. No one cared. The rain had thinned to a mist, but his hands were cold with dread. They marched him back toward the pavilion. The corridors grew narrower, quieter. The walls felt close. He kept replaying the scene in his mind. The princess's calm voice, her kindness, the small smile she had given him. He feared that even remembering it would be considered a crime. They pushed open a door and guided him inside. Minister Reinhardt, the same man who had interrupted earlier, stood by a tall desk, reviewing documents. When he looked up, irritation flashed across his face. "What is this?" The silver-haired official bowed. "We found this man lingering near the princess's pavilion. He claims to be a produce supplier." Minister Reinhardt stepped closer and narrowed his eyes. "I recognize you. You were inside Her Highness's room earlier." Lucas swallowed. "Yes, sir, by mistake. I didn't mean to enter." "You did not mean to enter," Reinhardt repeated slowly. "Do you expect anyone here to believe that?" "It's true," Lucas insisted. "I was directed to the wrong pavilion. The princess herself said—" He stopped, realizing too late that invoking her name might worsen everything. Reinhardt lifted a hand. "Enough. You will not speak of the princess. You will not claim she excused your presence. Her Highness's demeanor leads her to kindness, even when propriety demands caution. It is our responsibility to ensure her reputation remains untouched." Lucas stiffened. "I didn't harm her reputation, sir." The minister stepped closer, lowering his voice. "A common farmer wandering through royal corridors is harm enough. What were you hoping to gain? Favor, opportunity, a moment of attention from someone far above your station?" Lucas's throat tightened. "Nothing of the sort. I only followed directions." Reinhardt exchanged a look with the officials, then sighed. "This must not happen again. Your access will be reviewed. If a single complaint is raised against you, you will lose your position supplying the palace." Lucas felt the blow more sharply than he expected. His family relied on the contract. It was their most stable income. "Sir, please," he said, "the farm depends on—" "Then take more care," Reinhardt cut in. "You may go." Lucas hesitated. The officials stared him down. He bowed stiffly and left the room, his steps unsteady. The corridor outside felt colder than the rain. He hurried through the gardens toward the service gate, hoping to escape before further trouble found him. Servants carried baskets and linens past him, but several paused to observe him with thinly veiled curiosity. Their glances stung more than words. He passed a pair of footmen who hushed their conversation the moment he drew near. One whispered something behind his hand, and the other snickered. Lucas lowered his eyes and kept walking. "They think I went in on purpose," he muttered. "They think I wanted something from her." The thought sickened him. Princess Amalia had been nothing but gracious. And now, because of him, she might face whispered accusations. The idea pierced him deeper than the threat to his livelihood. At last, he reached the delivery courtyard. A stable boy recognized him and waved. "Back so soon, Mr. Weber?" Lucas forced a strained smile. There was some confusion with the route. "Happens to newcomers," the boy said lightly. "You'll get used to it." Lucas didn't answer. He loaded his empty crates onto the wagon and climbed onto the seat. The horse snorted softly, as if sensing his tension. He flicked the reins. "Let's go home." The wheels creaked over the cobblestones as he exited through the service gate. Once outside the palace walls, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The rain had stopped entirely, and the clouds broke enough to show pale streaks of afternoon light. But peace didn't follow him. When he reached the farm, his mother stepped out to greet him. "You're back early. Did the delivery go well?" He hesitated. "Mostly." "Mostly?" She peered at him. "Lucas, what happened?" He unloaded the crates and tried to sound casual. "I went into the wrong building, that's all. Caused a fuss. Nothing harmful." His mother frowned. "The palace is particular about rules. Will they keep our contract?" He forced a smile he didn't feel. "Yes. They only warned me." His mother searched his face but didn't press further. She returned inside to stir the evening pot, leaving him alone in the yard. He leaned on the fence and stared at the darkening sky. The princess's face rose in his mind, not as royalty, but as someone gentle and lonely. Someone who had spoken to him without condescension. Someone who had lied to protect him. He should have been relieved to be home. Instead, he felt a strange heaviness, as though he'd left something unfinished behind those palace walls. The next morning came with a soft breeze and early light. Lucas finished his chores quickly, trying to shake the feeling that he'd lost something precious. He was stacking firewood when a rider approached along the dirt road. The horse slowed. A young woman in palace livery dismounted and stepped toward him. Her hair was tied neatly, her expression serious but not unkind. "Mr. Lucas Weber?" "That's me." She offered him a folded note sealed with the imperial crest. "Princess Amalia requests your presence at the palace tomorrow afternoon. She said it concerns a clarification of yesterday's confusion." Lucas stared at the note as though it were a piece of glowing metal. "For me? Why?" "She did not tell me, only that it was important." He almost didn't speak. Then he whispered, "Does the minister know?" The young woman hesitated. "I imagine not." Her Highness was discreet. A chill ran down Lucas's spine. The princess was risking something again, for him, and he didn't understand why. He took the note with both hands. "Thank you." The messenger mounted her horse and rode off, leaving dust rising behind her. Lucas opened the note slowly. The handwriting was delicate but firm. "Mr. Weber, please return to the palace. I wish to set right the misunderstanding on your behalf. With respect, Amalia von Hohenberg." He closed the note, breathless. She wanted to help him. She didn't need to. She shouldn't have to. He was a farmer, insignificant beside her title, and yet she had thought of him. He paced the yard, trying to think clearly. Going back could easily make matters worse. If anyone discovered she had summoned him, but refusing would be disrespectful, and he couldn't deny a truth already forming in his heart. He wanted to see her again. He returned to the house. His mother noticed his distracted movements. "More trouble with the palace?" "No," he said. "Not trouble. Just another request." "A request?" He hesitated. "From Princess Amalia." His mother froze with a ladle in her hand. "The princess? She wants to see you." "Yes." His mother set the ladle aside, unsure whether to worry or be proud. "Well, then you'd better go. But be careful, Lucas. Nobles are rarely simple." He nodded, though he barely heard her. His mind was already far away, imagining the pavilion, the quiet, her steady gaze. The next day he made the journey with a mix of dread and anticipation twisting in his chest. The palace loomed ahead, magnificent and unwelcoming. He entered through the service gate as instructed, and a familiar guard led him through a quieter corridor than before. When he reached the edge of the gardens, he saw her waiting beneath a stone archway. Princess Amalia, her hands resting gently on the wheels of her elegant chair, her lady-in-waiting beside her. She looked up as he approached. A warm, genuine light touched her eyes. "Mr. Weber, thank you for coming." He bowed, stiff with nerves. "You summoned me, Princess. I couldn't refuse." She smiled faintly. "I wish to apologize for yesterday. I fear my attendance made your situation unnecessarily difficult." "Your Highness, you owe me no apology. I was the one who caused trouble." "No," she said firmly. "You were misdirected, and you acted with honesty. That is not trouble." He felt his chest tighten. The lady-in-waiting shifted discreetly a few steps away, giving them space. Amalia continued in a softer tone. "I also wish to ensure you are not punished. The palace can be quick to protect my reputation." Lucas exhaled slowly. "Thank you, Princess. Your kindness is more than I deserve." "I disagree," she said, and her voice carried a warmth that surprised him. "I am grateful you returned. I wanted you to know that you may continue your deliveries without fear." He nodded. "I'm relieved to hear it." But she hesitated then, watching him closely. "Mr. Weber, there is something else I wish to ask." "Yes, Princess?" Before she could speak, hurried footsteps sounded from behind the colonnade. A court attendant rounded the corner, eyes wide with alarm. "Your Highness," he gasped, "the minister has learned that you summoned a groundsman without permission. He is coming here now." Lucas turned pale as the attendant pointed toward the far end of the gardens, and there, approaching with long, decisive strides, was Minister Reinhardt. He was heading straight toward them. Lucas stood frozen as Minister Reinhardt advanced across the garden path, with long, unyielding strides. Princess Amalia remained steady in her chair, though he sensed a faint tension in her posture. Her lady-in-waiting stepped closer, ready to intervene but powerless to stop what was coming. Reinhardt stopped a breath away from them and bowed to the princess, though the gesture was tight and impatient. "Your Highness, I was notified that you summoned this man. Is that correct?" Amalia lifted her chin. "It is." Reinhardt turned to Lucas, his eyes sharp. "Mr. Weber, did you request this meeting?" "No, sir," Lucas replied. "Her Highness sent for me." Reinhardt inhaled sharply, clearly displeased with the answer. His gaze swung back to Amalia. "Your Highness, may I speak plainly?" She nodded, though her tone cooled. "Of course. It is highly irregular for you to call upon a supplier privately. Any matter concerning deliveries should be handled by the kitchen staff or by myself. This visit places you at risk of speculation." Lucas felt heat creep up his neck. He understood nothing of royal etiquette, but it was clear that their meeting violated some unspoken boundary. Amalia, however, showed no sign of retreat. "I needed to speak with him directly," she said softly. "There was misinformation regarding his conduct yesterday." Reinhardt's brows tightened further. "Misinformation or not, it is unwise to involve yourself personally in these matters. Your time is valuable. Your reputation even more so." Amalia exhaled, steady and calm. "My reputation is not harmed by a simple conversation, Minister." Reinhardt paused, a pause that felt like a reprimand barely contained. With every second, Lucas felt smaller and more out of place. "Your Highness, forgive my candor, but appearances are fragile. If word spreads that you receive commoners alone, questions will arise." Lucas stiffened. He opened his mouth, but Amalia spoke first. "I do not receive him alone," she reminded him. "My lady-in-waiting is present." Reinhardt's patience thinned. "The court can twist even honest circumstances. You must be cautious." Then he turned to Lucas, voice clipped. "Mr. Weber, answer truthfully. Did you speak freely with Her Highness yesterday?" Lucas hesitated, not knowing which answer was safer. I spoke with her, yes." Reinhardt's expression darkened. "And did Her Highness invite your engagement in conversation?" Lucas felt his stomach twist. "Sir, she only asked where I was from. Nothing improper occurred." "Improper is not the issue," Reinhardt said, already dismissing the explanation. "The issue is familiarity, overstepping. You must understand that her time with noble visitors is governed by strict schedules, not," he gestured vaguely, "casual exchanges with laborers." Amalia's voice sharpened, low but firm. "Minister Reinhardt, Mr. Weber has shown nothing but respect. I will not have him spoken to as though he intentionally violated decorum." Reinhardt looked taken aback by her defense. "Your Highness, I speak only to protect your standing. Nothing more." "Then allow me to decide what threatens my standing," she replied. Lucas tried to breathe quietly. He had never seen someone challenge authority with such calm grace. It struck him deeply, more deeply than he wished to admit. Reinhardt straightened, his tone forced into neutrality. "Very well. If your Highness insists on maintaining this conversation, I will ask that it be brief. The schedule for the day's meetings must resume." Amalia inclined her head. "Thank you, Minister." Reinhardt bowed stiffly and stepped aside, waiting at a respectable distance, but close enough to hear every word. Amalia turned back to Lucas, her gaze gentler than before. "Forgive the interruption. I wanted to tell you that I reviewed the account given yesterday. You were unfairly blamed for a mistake that was not your own." "You don't owe me anything, Princess," Lucas said quietly. "I didn't come here for a defense." "I know," she said. "That is precisely why I wish to give it." He swallowed, uncertain how to respond. Her sincerity disarmed him. He had never spoken with someone so far above his station, yet he felt strangely at ease with her. Amalia glanced toward the minister, then back to Lucas. "I also wanted to ask you something more personal, if you would permit me." His pulse quickened. "Yes, of course." She met his eyes without hesitation. "Yesterday, when you stood in my pavilion, you spoke as though the farm were a place of peace. Is it truly peaceful?" He blinked. "Yes, Princess. Mostly. There's work every day, but the quiet is good." She studied him intently. "People speak freely with you there, I imagine." He shrugged. "Some do. Most just try to get through their day. Is there kindness where you live?" The question surprised him, too soft, too raw. He hesitated before answering. "There is, Princess, more than in the city. People look out for one another. No one's alone. Her gaze softened. That must be nice. It's home, he said quietly. She let out a careful breath. I haven't been outside the palace grounds in years. My world is made of halls and faces that watch too closely. Even when they are kind, they speak as though I am a fragile thing. Lucas swallowed. I'm sorry, Princess. Don't be, she said. Just tell me one thing, Mr. Weber. When you saw me yesterday, did you pity me? He felt the weight behind her words. She wasn't asking about charity. She was asking about dignity. No, he said immediately. I didn't pity you. Her eyes widened slightly. You didn't. He shook his head. You were kind. That's what I saw. Someone kind and honest. For a moment, something warm flickered across her face, like sunlight breaking through a cloud. Thank you, she whispered. You do not know how rare that is. Then her lady-in-waiting approached, speaking gently. Your Highness, it is nearly time for the afternoon engagement. Amalia nodded, though disappointment crossed her gaze. She turned back to Lucas. Thank you for coming, and please, continue your work without fear. I will speak with the minister myself. Lucas bowed. I will, Princess. Thank you. As he stepped back, Amalia added quietly, Mr. Weber, I hope this will not be the last time we speak. He froze, startled. Before he could answer, Reinhardt rejoined them, clearing his throat. Your Highness, the council members await your presence. Amalia offered Lucas a faint smile before turning her chair toward the path. Her lady-in-waiting guided her gently. Reinhardt followed, still glancing back at Lucas with a guarded expression. Lucas remained alone in the garden for a long moment, unsure how to breathe. Her final words echoed through him with unsettling force. I hope this will not be the last time we speak. He finally walked toward the service gate, but the palace felt transformed. No longer cold stone and strict rules, but a place where possibility lived in one small pavilion near a window. The next morning, he returned to the palace to deliver the week's produce. His hands trembled slightly as he loaded the crates onto the cart, yet he told himself it was only the chill in the air. Nothing more. When he reached the delivery courtyard, the usual staff bustled about, but as soon as he stepped inside, he sensed something different. Conversations quieted. Two maids glanced at him and whispered. A footman eyed him as though he were a puzzle missing several pieces. Lucas pressed on, dropping off his crates at the kitchen. The head cook nodded curtly and then leaned closer. You've been noticed, Weber. He stiffened. What do you mean? The cook shrugged. Some of the staff saw you speaking with the princess yesterday. People talk, that's all. Lucas felt his heart jolt. He kept his voice low. Nothing happened. She just corrected a misunderstanding. People don't care about details, lad. They see what they want. He knew the cook was right. The palace breathed gossip like air. He stepped out of the kitchen and headed toward the exit. But near the corridor leading to the gardens, he saw someone he wished desperately to avoid, the lady-in-waiting from yesterday. She spotted him instantly and approached with quick steps. Mr. Weber, I'm glad I found you, he bowed. Is Her Highness well? Quite well, but... She lowered her voice. You must be cautious. Some in the court are unsettled by her interest in speaking with you. They say it distracts her from matters she should focus on. Lucas felt the ground shift slightly beneath him. I didn't ask for her interest. I know, she said gently. And she knows. But others believe what suits them. Avoid drawing attention to yourself. He nodded. I will. She offered him a sympathetic look and returned to her duties. Lucas hurried toward the service gate, grateful for the advice but deeply uneasy. He reached the wagon, climbed aboard, and gripped the reins. But before he could flick them, a shadow moved at the far end of the courtyard. A man stepped forward, tall, well-dressed, and familiar. It was the noble suitor, the one who had failed to appear during Amalia's arranged meeting. He walked straight toward Lucas, eyes cold, steps deliberate. You, he said. You're the farmer who was found near the princess. Lucas's pulse hammered. Yes, sir. I was delivering produce. Nothing more. The nobleman's lips curled. So they say. Yet I've heard whispers that Her Highness favors your company. Lucas stiffened. That isn't true. The nobleman stepped closer, voice low and cutting. Whether it is or not doesn't matter. What matters is that I intend to court the princess, and I won't tolerate interference from a farmhand." Lucas tried to speak, but the nobleman raised a hand. "Stay away from her." Lucas forced his voice steady. "Sir, I have no intention of disturbing her." "Good. Then keep it that way." He stepped back, still glowering. "Because I promise you the court will not be kind to someone who forgets his place." Lucas gripped the reins tightly, his jaw clenched. The nobleman's footsteps faded, but the threat lingered in the air long after he was gone. And as Lucas looked toward the distant palace windows, he knew one thing with sudden clarity. The world around Princess Amalia was starting to notice him. And not kindly. He flicked the reins, but just as the wagon began to move, a voice called behind him. "Mr. Weber, someone wishes to see you at once." Lucas turned, reins still in his hands. A young palace runner hurried toward him, breathless and splattered with mud from crossing the courtyard too quickly. His voice cracked as he reached the wagon. "Mr. Weber, please come quickly. You are needed in the west corridor." Lucas blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Needed? By whom?" He climbed down from the wagon. "Who asked for me?" The runner glanced around nervously as if afraid someone might hear. "Her Highness's lady-in-waiting. She said it's urgent." Lucas's pulse quickened. "Did something happen?" The runner shook his head. "I don't know. She just said to bring you." "Hurry." Lucas followed him without another word. The noble suitor's threat echoed in his thoughts, but the fear of being summoned overrode everything. They crossed the courtyard, past two maids who whispered behind their hands, and entered a side door leading into a quiet passageway rarely used by staff. The runner pointed toward a narrow staircase. "Up there. She's waiting." Lucas climbed quickly. At the top, in a dim corridor, he found Princess Amalia's lady-in-waiting pacing with tight worry across her face. When she saw him, she rushed forward. "Mr. Weber, thank heavens. I wasn't sure if they would reach you in time." "What's wrong?" he asked. "Is the princess—" No. She is perfectly safe. But she is distressed, and I fear the situation may worsen." Lucas felt the breath return to him, though only slightly. "What happened?" The lady-in-waiting lowered her voice. "One of the court secretaries overheard the minister discussing yesterday's garden meeting. It seems he believes you have grown impertinent, seeking private conversations with Her Highness." "Impertinent?" Lucas shook his head. "I never sought her out." She asked. "I know," she whispered, pressing a hand to her forehead, "but they twist what they see, and now her father's advisors may carry these concerns directly to the Emperor." Lucas felt the ground shift beneath him. "Why bring me here? I can't fix any of this." She exhaled sharply. "Because Her Highness wishes to speak with you before anyone else does. She refuses to let your name be tarnished by rumor." Lucas swallowed hard. "Where is she?" "In the small reading room near the East Gallery." "Follow me, quickly." They moved through narrow back corridors, avoiding the busier hallways. Every turn made Lucas more aware of how deeply he had stepped into a world he didn't belong in. He wasn't meant to walk marble floors or pass oil portraits of emperors. He wasn't meant to stand near a princess's private reading room. Yet here he was. The lady-in-waiting halted near a carved wooden door. She knocked gently. "Your Highness?" "He is here," a faint voice responded. "Please, let him in." The lady-in-waiting opened the door and Lucas stepped inside. Princess Amalia sat beside a small table, a teacup untouched before her. Sunlight filtered through the tall window, casting soft light across her hands. She looked up as he entered, and relief washed through her expression. "Mr. Weber, thank you for coming." Lucas bowed quickly. "Princess, I came as soon as I was called." "Are you well?" She nodded, though her posture suggested otherwise. "I am, but the situation around us is not. Please sit. I fear I have caused you more trouble than I intended." He hesitated but took the chair across from her. "Princess, you have caused me no trouble, not compared to what your kindness has given me." A faint smile touched her lips, but it faded quickly. "The minister is concerned about our conversations. He believes they reflect poorly on me, and that you might use our meetings to gain influence." Lucas looked horrified. "Influence? Princess, I barely know how to speak properly around you." "That is precisely why I trust you," she murmured. "You do not treat me as a symbol or a burden. That is rare here. He lowered his voice. I am only myself, nothing more. She met his eyes, steady and searching. That is not a small thing. He felt heat rise in his chest, unsure how to respond. But before he could speak, she continued. Mr. Weber, I wished to ask you something yesterday before the minister interrupted. Something personal. He nodded, waiting. She clasped her hands lightly. When you stood in my pavilion that first day, you did not stare at me the way others often do. He frowned. How do they stare? As if measuring what I lack, she said quietly. As if speaking to a woman in a chair rather than a woman. But you looked at me as though I was simply myself. Lucas's voice softened. I didn't see anything to measure, Princess. I only saw you. Her breath caught for a moment. She looked down at her folded hands. Forgive me for speaking so plainly. I'm not accustomed to doing so. I don't mind, he said. Speak to me however you wish. She raised her eyes again, gentler now. Yesterday, I wanted to ask you whether you would be willing to continue our conversations, occasionally. Not formally, not in defiance of the court, but simply because I found them. She paused. Refreshing. Lucas could hardly breathe. You want to speak with me again? Yes, she said, but only if you wish it as well. He swallowed. Princess, of course I wish it. I only fear what it may cost you. Her voice grew firmer. What it may cost me is not your burden to carry. He shook his head. But it becomes my burden when they blame me for it. Yesterday the minister nearly... Before he could finish, she lifted her hand. Mr. Weber, I know the risk, and yet I would rather risk whispers than return to silence. You may not understand what that means to me. He didn't. But the emotion in her voice told him it was heavy, deeply carried. He leaned forward slightly. Princess Amalia, I will meet you again if that is what you wish. I only need to know it won't harm you. Her eyes warmed. It will not harm me, she said. It will help me breathe. Silence followed, gentle, close, full of something growing between them that neither dared name. Suddenly the door burst open. The lady-in-waiting gasped. Forgive me, Your Highness, but someone is coming down the hall, someone who should absolutely not find Mr. Weber here. Lucas stood immediately. Who? The lady-in-waiting whispered urgently. A senior court official. He already suspects too much. If he sees you here, the misunderstanding will become a scandal. Amalia's face paled. Lucas, you must leave by the back exit. Quickly. Lucas moved toward the small door she pointed to, adrenaline racing. But just as he gripped the handle, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Princess Amalia whispered his name in alarm. Lucas froze. The footsteps stopped directly outside the door. The footsteps outside the door stopped so abruptly that Lucas felt the silence press against his back. He didn't dare turn. The small reading room shrank around him, trapping every breath. Princess Amalia's voice came faint and tense behind him. Mr. Weber, please go. Before he could move, the handle of the main door began to turn. The lady-in-waiting stepped forward and whispered sharply. This way! She pointed to a narrow service door barely visible behind a tapestry. Lucas rushed to it, pulled it open and slipped inside, closing it softly behind him. He found himself in a dim, slender passage that smelled faintly of polish and dust. He pressed his ear to the door, just as voices carried through the crack. The official's tone was crisp. Your Highness, I was told you were here, Amalia answered with composed politeness. Yes, Herr Baumann. I was reading. You sounded unsettled. Only because you startled us, she replied gracefully. Lucas clenched his jaw. Her calmness never cracked, yet he knew she was protecting him. The official's footsteps entered the room. What of your companion? I thought I heard another voice. My lady-in-waiting, Amalia replied. She assists me when I grow tired. The lady-in-waiting added quickly, I was only adjusting the curtains, sir. Baumann hummed suspiciously, pacing. Rumors are spreading, Your Highness. Not among dignitaries yet, but among the palace staff. I advise caution. Rumors of what? Amalia asked, her voice steady but cold. Whispers. Servants speak of a man seen near your pavilion. Someone unfamiliar. Amalia paused. Then she said quietly, Servants often invent stories. Perhaps we should not lend weight to idle talk, the official huffed. Idle or not, you must guard your reputation, Princess. Appearances matter. Lucas clenched his fists. It seemed every word spoken around her came with the weight of judgment. Finally, Baumann said, "The Emperor wishes to see you later today. A private audience. I advise you to prepare." Amalia replied with a simple, "Of course." The official bowed and left. Silence hung in the room for several seconds before the lady-in-waiting whispered, "He's gone." Lucas let out a quiet breath. Then he slipped through the hidden corridor and returned carefully to the reading room. Amalia looked at him with relief, mixed with sadness. "Mr. Weber, this cannot continue like this," she said softly. "They grow suspicious of every movement I make." Lucas lowered his eyes. "I'm causing trouble again." "No," she said firmly. "They cause the trouble. You only exist in a place they do not wish you to be." Her lady-in-waiting spoke with gentle urgency. "You should leave for today, before someone else arrives." Amalia nodded reluctantly. She looked at Lucas, her voice softening. "We will find a safe way to speak again, I promise." He bowed, but he hesitated longer than he should have. Leaving felt like abandoning her to a world that misunderstood every breath she took. Still, he obeyed, slipping out the back passage until he reached the far corridor. When he finally stepped out into the open air of the gardens, he inhaled deeply as though waking from a dream. He hurried to the service gate, keeping his head down. Every servant he passed seemed to know something, or maybe it was only his fear making their glances heavy. He reached his wagon. As he climbed up, the same noble suitor from before appeared beside him, as if summoned by the growing tension in the air. "Weber." Lucas tensed. "Sir, you're becoming a nuisance," the nobleman said calmly, too calmly. The staff whisper. "The minister asks questions, and the princess," he paused, "seems unnervingly willing to defend you." Lucas gripped the reins. "I don't seek her defense." "No, I imagine you do not seek anything at all. It makes this even more inconvenient." The nobleman stepped closer. "Whatever fascination she has with you will end. The court will see to that." Before Lucas could answer, the nobleman added, "Keep your head down, farmer, for your own sake." He walked off, leaving the warning hanging in the air like smoke. The ride home took longer than usual. Lucas kept replaying every moment with Amalia, struggling to understand why the court saw danger in simple conversation. But then he remembered how she had asked him whether he pitied her, how she had said that speaking with him helped her breathe. By the time he reached the farm, dusk had settled. His mother stepped out again, catching sight of his troubled face. "Lucas, what now?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Just palace matters." She studied him closely. "If this concerns the princess again, you ought to reconsider how involved you allow yourself to become." "I didn't choose any of this," he said quietly. His mother's tone softened. "I know. But high places have sharp corners." He nodded, though it didn't ease the weight inside him. The next morning dawned grey and cool. He tried to lose himself in work, but his thoughts kept drifting toward the palace, toward her, toward the audience she was expected to have with her father. Near midday, the sound of a carriage wheels approached. Lucas lifted his head as a small palace cart stopped at the gate. A familiar figure stepped down, the lady in waiting. She hurried to him. "Mr. Weber, we must speak privately." He led her toward the barn, away from his mother's ears. "What's happened? Is she well?" "She is unharmed," the lady in waiting said quickly, "but the Emperor questioned her about you." Lucas's breath caught. "About me?" "Yes. Apparently, Minister Reinhardt and Herr Baumann brought their concerns to him first thing this morning. They said your presence was becoming frequent and unmonitored." Lucas felt his face go cold. "I haven't gone near her without being asked." "She knows that," the lady-in-waiting said. "And she told the Emperor as much. She defended you openly, perhaps too openly." "What did she say?" "That you were respectful, honest, that the mistake in the pavilion was not yours, and that the conversation in the garden was harmless." Lucas lowered his voice. "And the Emperor believed her?" The lady-in-waiting hesitated. "It is difficult to say. He loves her, truly, but he fears scandal. He asked her to avoid unnecessary interactions with unfamiliar men. You were mentioned by name." Lucas's heart tightened. "Then he shouldn't see me anymore." The lady-in-waiting shook her head. "She refuses to accept that. She says she will not be confined to silence again. She asked me to give you this." She handed him a folded paper. "The same crest. The same delicate handwriting. He opened it. "Mr. Weber, please come to the gardens tomorrow at sunset. I wish to speak with you before any further decisions are forced upon us. A." Lucas let the paper tremble in his hands. He looked up. "This will only make things worse." "Perhaps," the lady-in-waiting admitted. "But she insists. And you must decide for yourself whether to go." She returned to the cart and left him standing there with the note. That night he barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes he saw her, sitting alone in the reading room, facing officials who believed they understood her life better than she did. When the next day came, he rode to Vienna with a heart full of fear and hope in equal measure. The palace was quieter at sunset. The sky glowed faintly as he entered the gardens through the side path the lady-in-waiting had instructed. He walked until he spotted her beneath one of the old stone archways, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked up the moment she heard his steps. "Mr. Weber, you came." He bowed. "Princess, you shouldn't have asked me to." "Perhaps not," she said softly. "But I wished to." He approached slowly and sat beside her, careful not to seem too familiar. She watched the garden paths as she spoke. "My father questioned me sharply today. He is worried, but he does not understand what burdens me. He thinks I crave attention or distraction." Lucas frowned. "But it isn't that." "No." She turned to him. "It is the first time in a long while that I have felt seen." He felt warmth rise in his chest. "Princess, I don't know why you trust me so much." "Because you speak without hesitation," she answered. "Everyone around me hesitates. They weigh every word, fearing they will offend me or pity me. Even those who mean well speak as though addressing a fragile thing. And I don't. You speak to me as a woman, a person. Not porcelain, not a title. It is rare." Lucas lowered his gaze. "I don't always know the right words." "That is precisely why your words matter to me," she replied gently. "They are real." A long silence formed, not heavy, but full. Lucas looked at her, really looked, and felt something shift between them. She noticed it too because her voice softened. "Mr. Weber, Lucas, I do not want to lose this. Not yet." His heart beat hard in his chest. "Princess, if my being here puts you at risk—" "Everything here puts me at risk," she said quietly, even breathing out of turn. "But for once I wish to choose my risk." He exhaled, torn. "Princess Amalia, people are starting to talk." "Let them talk," she whispered. "For the first time in years, I feel alive." He swallowed. "If they force me to stay away," she cut him off with a look both brave and vulnerable, "then I will find ways to reach you still." He felt something collapse inside him, something that made space for courage he didn't know he had. "Princess, I'll stay, as long as you want me to." She watched him, her expression softening into something that resembled hope. "Thank you." They sat there in the fading light, the world around them shrinking to the small circle of space they shared. No guards, no ministers, no watching eyes. Then far down the path a shadow moved. Lucas stiffened. "Princess, someone is coming." Lucas rose instinctively, stepping half a pace in front of Princess Amalia as the shadow lengthened along the garden path. She lifted a hand, silently urging him not to draw attention to himself, but the gesture came too late. The approaching figure already quickened his stride, boots striking the stones with purpose. It was the noble suitor. He stopped only a few feet away and stared at Lucas with open astonishment, then at the princess, his shock turning into something sharper. "Your Highness, I did not expect company." Amalia kept her composure, though her voice cooled. "Good evening, Lord Kielberg." The nobleman's eyes flicked back to Lucas. "Mr. Weber, I did not realize you were granted private audience privileges." Lucas tried to answer calmly. "I'm only delivering produce, sir." "At sunset." Kielberg stepped forward, his tone dripping with suspicion. "In the secluded gardens? Alone with the princess?" Amalia straightened in her chair. "Lord Kielberg, that is enough." He ignored her, looking at Lucas as if he were a trespasser standing on forbidden ground. "This is precisely the sort of impropriety the court warned about. You are overstepping." "I was invited," Lucas said, voice steady but strained. Kielberg let out a quiet laugh. "Invited? By the princess herself? How convenient." Amalia's voice sharpened. Lord Kielberg, Mr. Weber speaks the truth. I asked him to meet me here. Kielberg turned to her in disbelief. Your Highness, surely you understand how this appears? Yes, she said firmly. I understand perfectly. Kielberg's jaw tightened. Then you know this cannot continue. The Emperor will not tolerate behavior that invites scandal. Lucas stepped forward, unable to stay silent. She did nothing wrong. None of this is her fault. Kielberg wheeled on him. Do not speak for her. I'm not speaking for her, Lucas said. I'm speaking the truth. Kielberg's eyes narrowed. The truth is irrelevant when perception destroys reputations, and you, Farmer, have placed Her Highness in a precarious position. I haven't placed her anywhere, Lucas said, voice low. She chose to speak to me. Kielberg stiffened at the implication. Amalia intervened, her tone controlled. Lord Kielberg, Mr. Weber and I have done nothing improper. I ask that you respect that. He bowed stiffly. Forgive me, Your Highness, but the court does not judge intentions, it judges appearances. The lady-in-waiting arrived at that moment, breathless and pale. Your Highness, please, your father requests you immediately. He has questions. Amalia's eyes widened, though she contained her fear quickly. She turned to Lucas. I must go. Lucas stepped closer, speaking quietly. Princess, I don't want you blamed because of me. She offered a faint, pained smile. You are not the cause. Their fears are. Kielberg cleared his throat impatiently. I shall escort you, Your Highness. It is important you arrive without delay. Amalia hesitated, clearly wishing to refuse him, but duty forced her to nod. The lady-in-waiting positioned her hands on the chair and prepared to push it. Kielberg glared again at Lucas, before turning away with stiff dignity. As Amalia began moving toward the palace, she looked back over her shoulder. Her voice was soft but firm. Please do not leave Vienna, Mr. Weber, not yet. Lucas nodded once, unable to speak. Then she disappeared behind a stone archway, swallowed by the palace itself. He remained in the garden a moment longer, breathing through the ache in his chest. The last of the daylight faded. He sensed the change coming, sharp and unavoidable. When he finally left the gardens, 2 guards stood near the gate. One nodded at him with a familiar, pitying look. Be careful, Weber. The palace is restless tonight. Lucas forced a tight smile. I know. He returned to the farm under a darkening sky, but his thoughts never left the palace. By morning he was exhausted, yet unable to rest. He spent the day tending the fields with distracted movements, dropping tools, forgetting simple tasks. His mother watched him closely. The palace again? Always, he admitted. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Lucas, what is happening? He hesitated. The princess. She's in trouble because of me. And she might be questioned by the Emperor. His mother's eyes widened. Lucas, listen to me. A farmer cannot stand against an emperor. Whatever this has become, you must step back before it breaks you both. But she asked me to stay, he said quietly. His mother tightened her grip. Not all requests can be granted. Those words followed him into the night. Early the next morning, as mist clung to the fields, another palace messenger arrived. The horse's hooves kicked up damp earth, and the rider jumped down without ceremony. Mr. Lucas Weber? The man called. Lucas stepped forward, tension in his shoulders. Yes? You are summoned to the palace. Immediately. Lucas's heart lurched. By whom? The messenger hesitated before answering. The Emperor himself. Lucas felt everything inside him freeze. Even the horse seemed to sense the weight of the moment and shifted uneasily. The Emperor? Lucas repeated. There must be a mistake. The messenger shook his head. No mistake, sir. You are to present yourself at once. His mother stood in the doorway, her hands covering her mouth. Lucas. No. He turned to her, forcing calm he didn't feel. I'll be careful, I promise. But she whispered, Lucas, you're walking into a storm. He offered no answer. He didn't have one. He mounted the messenger's horse, and they rode toward Vienna, with cold wind sweeping through his coat. His fear churned like stones inside him. When the gates of the palace opened before him, Lucas felt as small as he had the first day he entered. But this time he knew the halls he walked through carried consequences. The messenger guided him through corridors until they reached a tall door carved with imperial symbols. 2 guards stood at attention. "You will wait until summoned," one guard said. Lucas nodded silently. Minutes stretched into something heavier. Then the door opened and the other guard stepped aside. His voice was steady. "The Emperor will see you now." Lucas entered the chamber, feeling his heartbeat in his throat. Emperor Franz stood near a tall window, looking out at the gardens. His posture was rigid, his hands clasped behind him. The Minister Reinhardt stood to the side, waiting with folded arms. The Emperor turned slowly toward Lucas. "Mr. Weber." Lucas bowed. "Your Majesty." The Emperor watched him for a long moment. "I have been informed of your conversations with my daughter." Lucas's voice stayed low. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Emperor's gaze did not soften. "Princess Amalia is dear to me. Her life has not been easy. I expect those who interact with her to behave with utmost propriety." Lucas nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" the Emperor asked. "Because the reports I received suggest otherwise." Lucas swallowed. "Your Majesty, I never sought her attention. She spoke to me with kindness, and I answered with respect. Nothing more." The Emperor stepped closer, his expression controlled but stern. "Amalia has grown attached to these conversations. She defends you even when it is unwise. This places her in conflict with the court." Lucas felt his knees weaken. "I never meant to trouble her." "Perhaps not," the Emperor said, "but intention does not shield her from consequences." Lucas breathed in shakily. "What would you have of me?" The Emperor held his gaze. "A simple choice." Reinhardt stepped forward. "You will leave Vienna today and not return to the palace grounds. If you do, further steps will be taken," the Emperor continued, "and in doing so, you will spare my daughter from deeper scrutiny. Her reputation will recover. The court will calm." Lucas stared at the Emperor, feeling something inside him shatter. Leave. Abandon her. That was the choice. The Emperor spoke with finality. "You are a good man, Mr. Weber, but you do not belong in her world, and she cannot belong in yours." Silence pressed in on all sides. Lucas lowered his head. "If this is your command, I will obey." "It is," the Emperor said quietly. Lucas bowed once more, deeper this time. When he rose, he whispered, "Please tell her I meant no harm." The Emperor hesitated, but offered no promise. Reinhardt gestured toward the door. "This way." Lucas walked out of the chamber on unsteady legs. Each step felt like stepping away from something precious, something he had barely begun to understand. A guard escorted him to the courtyard. Lucas looked up once at the palace windows, unsure if she was behind any one of them, unaware of what was happening. He stepped toward the gate. Then a voice rang out behind him. "Lucas, stop! Someone is coming after you." Lucas spun around, heart hammering, half believing he had imagined the shout. But it came again, quicker, breathless, desperate. "Mr. Weber, please wait." Princess Amalia's lady-in-waiting was running across the courtyard, skirts gathered in her hands, cheeks flushed from effort. The guards at the gate stiffened, uncertain whether to stop her, but she waved them aside with surprising authority. Lucas stepped toward her. "What happened? Is she—" She skidded to a halt in front of him, panting. "She knows, Mr. Weber. She knows you were summoned. And she guessed what the Emperor told you." Lucas's throat tightened painfully. "She guessed? She knows you're being forced to leave." He felt the world tilt slightly. "I didn't want her to find out this way." The lady-in-waiting shook her head. "She refused to stay silent. She demanded to speak with you before you left." He blinked. "That's not allowed. She'll only get in more." "Too late," the woman cut in. "She's already on her way." Lucas stared at her in disbelief. "Here? Now?" "Yes, but you must understand. Her father's advisors are looking for her. They know she slipped out of her scheduled meeting. If they find her with you, the consequences will be worse than anything we've seen." A chill shot through Lucas. "Then I should go. She must not be seen with me." The lady-in-waiting grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength. "If you go now, you'll break her completely. She begged me, to stop you before you vanished. She said she refused to let her last conversation with you be dictated by fear." Lucas felt his breath catch. He couldn't imagine her begging anyone, not the court, not even her attendants. The thought made his chest ache. "Where is she?" he whispered. "There." The lady-in-waiting pointed toward the far end of the courtyard, where a slender figure was wheeling herself out from beneath an archway, her hands trembling with urgency. Princess Amalia. Her eyes found him instantly. Relief flooded her face, but it was chased by something deeper. Fear, determination, grief all at once. Lucas walked toward her slowly, aware of every watching eye, every servant pretending not to stare. She reached him and exhaled shakily. "Thank heavens. I thought you'd be gone." He knelt beside her. "Princess, you weren't supposed to leave your meeting." "I don't care." Her voice shook. "Not when they try to send you away without allowing us a final word." He felt his throat tighten. "I wasn't given a choice." "I know," she whispered. "My father thinks he's protecting me. He thinks ending this connection will keep me safe." Lucas looked into her eyes, seeing the turmoil she fought to hide. He spoke gently. "Princess, he's trying to shield you from gossip." Her hands curled against the armrests. "Gossip shapes my life more than truth ever has. But you spoke to me as though I were whole, as though I were more than my illness. Do you know how rare that is?" Lucas swallowed hard. "Princess Amalia, I wish I could change what he decided, but he commanded me to leave Vienna immediately. If I disobey, it will cause trouble for you." She shook her head fiercely. "I will not let their fear decide my happiness. Not this time." Her lady-in-waiting stepped closer, voice urgent. "Your Highness, please, we must return before the council notices your absence." Amalia ignored her. She looked only at Lucas. "Tell me the truth, Mr. Weber. If you leave today, will you ever come back?" Lucas felt something twist deep in his chest. He wanted to promise he would return. He wanted to swear he'd find a way. But he remembered the Emperor's voice, stern, final, immovable. I don't know." She flinched, as though he'd struck her. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "It isn't because I don't want to. It's because the Emperor made it clear. If I return, it won't only be me who suffers for it." Her eyes filled with quiet pain. "And what of me? Am I to return to silence? To pretend you are nothing but a passing acquaintance?" Lucas felt his resolve crumble. "Princess, I don't want to walk away from you." "Then don't," she whispered. He closed his eyes briefly, struggling with the weight of her plea. When he opened them, she stared at him with a tenderness that nearly unmade him. Amalia drew a steady breath. "Before all this began, I was alone in rooms filled with people. They smiled at me, pitied me, avoided my gaze. But then you entered the wrong pavilion and looked at me, not with pity but with sincerity. And I realized how long I had been waiting for someone to see me." Lucas felt his voice fail him. Her lady-in-waiting touched her shoulder gently. "Your Highness, please, we don't have time." Amalia shook her off. "Lucas, please answer me. If they had not forced this choice upon you, would you have chosen to stay near me?" His chest tightened painfully. He answered without hesitation. "Yes." Her lips parted in a breath that was almost a sob. "Then everything I feared is true." She reached for his hand. He hesitated only a moment before gently taking it. Her fingers were soft, cold from anxiety. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Promise that you won't disappear forever. If there comes a moment, any moment, when you can return safely, that you will." Lucas's voice was low and raw. "I promise." She exhaled, as though that vow alone held her together. Suddenly voices echoed down the corridor behind her. Men's voices, stern, urgent. Lucas and the lady-in-waiting turned at the same time, the minister, Herr Baumann, and 2 royal guards. They were searching. The lady-in-waiting hissed, "Your Highness, we must go, now!" Amalia stiffened. "They mustn't see him. They mustn't." Lucas released her hand reluctantly. "Princess, please, go with them. Don't let them punish you for this." She looked at him, trembling. "And you?" "I'll leave quietly." "They won't see me." Her voice cracked. "Lucas?" He forced a small, steady smile. "I meant what I promised." The lady-in-waiting quickly gripped the handles of the chair. "Your Highness, please." Amalia allowed herself to be turned, but her eyes stayed locked on Lucas as she was wheeled toward the sheltered corridor. Her expression held fear, grief, and something deeper, something fragile and unspoken. Just before she disappeared around the corner, she whispered his name, Lucas. It tore at him. He stepped back toward the courtyard wall, ready to slip away before the officials arrived. But as he turned, a guard shouted for someone to stop. Footsteps thundered closer, and a harsh voice yelled from behind him, "There! The farmer! Grab him before he escapes!" Lucas froze, the shout ringing through the courtyard like a bell struck too hard. Instinct told him to run, but he forced himself to turn slowly, trying not to appear guilty. 3 guards hurried toward him from the corridor, their expressions stern but not aggressive. Their boots struck the stones with sharp rhythm, growing louder with each step. The nearest guard lifted a hand. "Mr. Weber, stop!" Lucas raised both palms calmly. "I'm not resisting. What is it you want?" Another guard glanced toward the arch where Princess Amalia had disappeared moments earlier. His expression held concern, not fury. "The minister insists on speaking with you again," he said. "He believes you left before the audience was concluded." Lucas forced himself to breathe evenly. "I did not leave by choice." The audience was dismissed. The first guard exhaled as if trying to soften the tension. "We're not here to accuse you, Mr. Weber, but questions remain. The minister says your presence in the courtyard raises concerns." Lucas swallowed. "Concerns?" I was on my way out. The third guard stepped closer. "Then it will be a brief conversation, but you must come with us." Lucas hesitated, picturing Amalia's pale face, the tremble in her voice. She had begged him not to disappear. If he allowed the guards to escort him back inside, the minister might use the moment to claim Lucas had disobeyed imperial orders, but if he refused, he would appear defiant, risking further suspicion. He nodded slowly. "Very well." The guards relaxed slightly at his cooperation. They surrounded him, not threateningly but firmly, and guided him across the courtyard and through a side entrance rarely used by visitors. Lucas walked with them in silence, his thoughts racing. Had the Emperor already spoken with Amalia? Did she defend him again? Would she face consequences for it? The corridor ahead was dim. Tapestries lined the walls, old and faded. The guards led Lucas toward a small reception chamber where Minister Reinhardt stood waiting with Herr Baumann. Their faces were unreadable. Reinhardt folded his hands behind his back. "Mr. Weber, thank you for complying." Lucas felt the chill in his words. "Sir, you summoned me." "I had no intention of ignoring the order." Reinhardt stepped forward. "It has come to our attention that you remained on palace grounds after your dismissal. I needed to collect my wagon." Baumann cut in sharply. "And yet you lingered near the central courtyard." Lucas's jaw tightened. "I spoke briefly with Her Highness." Silence fell thick, heavy, and charged. Reinhardt's mouth thinned. Her Highness was not permitted to be alone at that time. "She wasn't alone," Lucas said calmly. "Her attendant was with her." That remark caught the officials off guard. Baumann exchanged a look with the minister, as though recalculating the situation. Reinhardt cleared his throat. "Be that as it may, your presence complicates matters. Her Highness's schedule is delicate. Any deviation causes alarm." Lucas forced himself to stay steady. "I never intended to disrupt anything." Baumann stepped closer. "Yet the court whispers only grow louder. People question why a farmer appears so often near the princess." "I came when summoned," Lucas replied. "Nothing more." Reinhardt's eyes narrowed. "And did Her Highness summon you today?" Lucas hesitated. The truth felt dangerous, but a lie felt worse. "Yes," he said quietly. Both officials stiffened. Reinhardt's voice grew tight. "And what did she want?" Lucas lifted his chin. "To speak with me, to clarify what had happened during the audience." Baumann scoffed. "To clarify? Or to continue your dangerous familiarity?" Lucas kept his voice firm. "Her Highness wished for clarity. That is all." Reinhardt studied him, searching for cracks. After a long moment, he sighed. "Mr. Weber, regardless of intention, your involvement has grown inappropriate. You must leave Vienna at once." Lucas swallowed. "It has been ordered already." "Then obey it fully," Baumann said coldly, "and without hesitation. Any delay will be seen as rebellion." Lucas gave a slow nod. "Very well." Reinhardt gestured to the guards. "Escort him to the outer gate. Ensure he departs the grounds." The guards approached, but not cruelly. Lucas followed them again, walking the same path that had brought him so close to the princess, and was now forcing him away. They stepped into the afternoon air. The courtyard had quieted. Only a handful of servants crossed between buildings. Lucas tried not to look toward the archway where he had last seen her. The guards guided him to the main service gate. One of them cleared his throat in an unusually soft tone. "For what it's worth, Weber, I'm sorry. Sometimes the palace forgets that people's hearts aren't built like their rules." Lucas forced a small, grateful nod. "Thank you." He stepped outside the gate and paused, staring at the cobblestone road leading back to the countryside, but his legs refused to move. A heavy ache settled in his chest. He didn't regret meeting her, not even for a moment, but the thought of leaving without seeing her again felt unbearable. He stood there a long time, torn between obedience and hope. Finally, he turned toward the road and began to walk. The path took him down the hill, then around a bend where the palace disappeared from view. The further he went, the heavier his steps became. He reached the edge of Vienna before stopping to catch his breath. He leaned against a stone railing overlooking the river. His mind replayed her last words. "Promise me you won't disappear forever," he whispered to the wind. "I won't." But returning too soon would put her in even greater danger. He couldn't do that to her. Hours passed before he reached his farm. His mother was waiting at the gate. Worry etched across her face. "Lucas, thank heavens, I feared the worst." He managed a hollow smile as he dismounted. "I'm all right. They only wanted to ensure I left." His mother studied him closely. "And the princess?" He shook his head. "She's safe. But we cannot speak. Not for now." His mother cupped his face gently like when he was a boy. "Lucas, you did what you could. Sometimes doing the right thing breaks us a little." He looked away, blinking hard. "I'll be fine." But he wasn't. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling while the farmhouse creaked softly around him. He imagined her in her quiet rooms, surrounded by advisors who misunderstood her, longing for a voice that spoke plainly. And he imagined her wondering whether he had abandoned her. He rose before dawn and went outside. The sky was a deep charcoal fading toward blue. He stood by the fence, gripping the wood so tightly his knuckles ached. He couldn't return. He couldn't write to her. And he couldn't lie to himself. He cared for her more than he knew how to bear. He dropped his head into his hands. The promise he had made to her felt heavy, sacred, impossible. Then, far down the road, he heard something, a distant clatter of wheels, muffled by the morning mist. He lifted his head. A carriage, small, light, moving quickly. It approached the farm at a speed far too urgent for a simple visit. His heart began to pound. The carriage slowed at the gate. A palace crest glinted faintly on its side. Then the door swung open. Princess Amalia's lady-in-waiting stepped out, breathless, her eyes full of alarm. "Mr. Weber, please, you must come with me at once. Something has happened." Lucas felt the air leave his lungs. The lady-in-waiting's urgency struck him harder than any order the Emperor had spoken. He stepped toward her, gripping the gate with one hand. "What happened? Is she hurt?" The woman shook her head quickly. "No, she is unharmed. But your Highness is in distress. You must come, please." Lucas's heartbeat steadied just enough for him to breathe again. If she wasn't physically harmed, then what? He opened the gate and stepped through. "Tell me everything on the way." The lady-in-waiting nodded and hurried toward the carriage. He climbed in beside her, and the driver snapped the reins. The horses surged forward, and the farmhouse shrank behind them. The lady-in-waiting spoke in a rush. "After you were escorted out, the Emperor met with Princess Amalia again. He wished to ensure she understood the terms of your dismissal. But when he told her you had obeyed and left without protest, she grew very quiet. Too quiet." Lucas stared ahead, jaw tight. She said nothing for several minutes. Then she asked her father why sincerity was treated as a threat, why kindness was dangerous. The Emperor was shaken by her emotion. "He loves her, Mr. Weber, but he does not understand her heart." Lucas swallowed. What did she do? The lady-in-waiting sighed. She asked for solitude. She withdrew to her private quarters and refused meals. She spoke to no one. I have never seen her so defeated. Lucas felt a deep ache in his chest. She should not bear this alone. This morning she told me she felt she had caused you suffering, that because of her you had lost your place, your safety, your peace. She said she wished she had never let you speak freely with her, that perhaps it would have been easier if she'd kept her heart guarded. Lucas closed his eyes briefly. She didn't mean that. I know, said the lady-in-waiting, but she is lost in despair. She believes she ruined something precious. She fears you left in anger or shame. Lucas shook his head fiercely. I left because I was ordered to. I left because I thought staying would harm her. Exactly, the lady-in-waiting said softly, and that is why you must see her. If she can just hear your voice, she may find her strength again. Lucas stared out at the fields speeding past. The sky had brightened to a pale gold, and the world felt suspended between night and day. He took a slow breath. I'll help her, whatever way I can, short of disobeying the Emperor again. The lady-in-waiting nodded. That is all I ask. The carriage clattered over the cobblestones as they approached Vienna. The palace rose into view, tall, stately, intimidating. Lucas felt the weight of it gather around him, but for the first time it did not frighten him. His fear was reserved only for what Amalia might be feeling inside those walls. When the carriage stopped behind a side entrance, the lady-in-waiting motioned him out. Keep your head down. We are entering through the servants' corridor. Many will not question me, and fewer still will recognize you. They slipped into a narrow hallway lit by dim lanterns. Servants hurried past carrying linens or trays, none paying them much attention. Lucas followed closely as the lady-in-waiting guided him through a series of turns until they reached a quieter wing of the palace. She stopped outside a carved wooden door. She is inside, she murmured. I told her I was going to fetch a physician. She will be alone. Lucas hesitated. Are you certain this is wise? She answered firmly. Wisdom matters less right now than her heart. Go. He drew a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was dim, lit only by low afternoon light slipping through gauze curtains. Princess Amalia sat near the window, her hands resting motionless on the arms of her chair. Her posture was still, too still, as though she carried the full weight of the palace on her shoulders. She did not turn when the door clicked softly behind him. Your Highness, he whispered. She stiffened. Her voice was barely audible. Lucas? He stepped closer. Yes. She turned slowly, and when her eyes met his, everything inside him softened. Her expression held disbelief, then relief, then something fragile and aching all at once. You came back, she breathed. I did. Her eyes glistened. I feared you had left forever. Lucas moved to stand before her. No, I would never disappear without a word. You deserved better than that. Much better. She closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. My father said he spoke to you. He said you accepted his decision. I did, Lucas said quietly, but not because I wanted to. A tremor ran through her hands. Did you feel forced into obedience? He hesitated. I felt afraid to hurt you. If I stayed, the court would turn its anger on you. I couldn't let that happen. Her chest rose shakily. Lucas, all my life I have been wrapped in caution, guarded, watched, sheltered from every shadow, yet none of it has protected me from loneliness. You were the first person who looked beyond it. Lucas knelt beside her chair. And you were the first person who saw worth in my words, my presence. You made me feel like more than my station. She reached out with trembling fingers and touched his hand. I am sorry. I thought by asking you not to leave Vienna I was giving you a choice, but I only placed you in danger. You didn't, he said softly. I followed the Emperor's command because I feared losing the chance to ever see you again. If I had stayed, they would have made me your enemy. She shook her head. You could never be my enemy. Silence settled gently between them, not heavy like before, but warm, a space where pain began to loosen its grip. She spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. Lucas, I do not wish to break the Emperor's trust, nor yours, but I cannot let this end in despair. I will not return to silence. He met her gaze and found a quiet fire in it, a bravery she had not shown openly before. I don't want silence either, he said. I want peace for you and for me. Her eyes softened. Then help me. Help me face what comes next. Lucas nodded slowly. I will, whatever you need. She exhaled shakily, as though releasing days of fear. I only need honesty and courage, and someone who sees me, Not the throne, not the illness, not the expectations. Then you already have that, he said gently. Her hand tightened around his. And you? What do you need? Lucas's voice was quiet. The chance to stay by your side without hiding. A faint, hopeful smile touched her lips. Then perhaps we begin by speaking the truth to those who fear it most. He hesitated. The Emperor? Yes, she whispered. My father must understand that compassion is not a threat, and that sincerity is not a crime. Lucas looked at her long and carefully. Are you certain? She nodded. For the first time in my life, I will choose my path before others choose it for me. He rose slowly, his hand still in hers. Then I'll be there. You won't face him alone. Her shoulders loosened and she let out a relieved breath. Thank you, Lucas. They stayed like that for a long moment. Quiet, steady, joined not by rule or command, but by something far more human. After a time, the lady-in-waiting re-entered silently. Her expression softened when she saw Amalia calmer than before. Your Highness, the Emperor will be available within the hour. He has concluded his morning duties. Amalia nodded. Inform him that I request a private audience, with Mr. Weber present. The lady-in-waiting blinked, startled. Princess, that is bold. It is necessary, Amalia said firmly. Lucas stepped closer. Princess, if the Emperor objects, then he will hear the truth from both of us, she interrupted gently, and he deserves to hear it. The lady-in-waiting bowed her head. As you wish, Your Highness. She slipped out to deliver the message. Amalia turned to Lucas again. Her expression steadied into one of calm resolve. Whatever happens, she whispered, I am grateful for you. He squeezed her hand softly. And I for you. The wind brushed through the curtains, carrying the scent of the palace gardens. For the first time in days, there was no fear tightening the air around them, only anticipation and the quiet strength of two people determined to face the world together. Their paths, though steep, no longer felt impossible, and as the hour approached, they prepared to step forward side by side into whatever truth awaited them. Princess Amalia waited with her hands resting lightly on the wheels of her chair, her gaze fixed on the tall double doors ahead. Lucas stood beside her, trying not to show how tightly his heartbeat thudded in his chest. The palace corridor was silent, except for the faint sound of guards shifting their weight. The lady-in-waiting returned at last. Her voice trembled with the weight of the moment. His Majesty will receive you both in the private audience chamber. Amalia nodded. Thank you. Please, walk with us. Lucas pushed her chair gently, though she guided the movement with her hands, determined to meet her father not as a fragile daughter, but as a woman with purpose. The corridor was long, lit by soft winter light, filtering through high windows. Lucas felt the gravity of every step, but the presence of her hand resting lightly against his steadied him. At the chamber doors, two guards opened them in unison. Inside, Emperor Franz stood near the window again, sunlight striking the silver strands in his hair. His expression was composed but troubled. He glanced first at his daughter, then at Lucas. Amalia's voice was calm. Father, thank you for seeing us together. The Emperor nodded slowly, though his eyes tightened. Amalia, my dear, this is highly irregular. Perhaps, she said softly, but sometimes what is irregular is what must be faced. The Emperor gestured to the seats, but Amalia did not move toward them. Lucas stood behind her chair, respectful yet steady. Father, she said gently, I ask your patience. Not your permission, your patience. The Emperor blinked at the distinction. He folded his hands behind his back. Very well. Speak. Amalia breathed once, gathering her strength. Lucas felt her resolve, and his own strengthened with it. Father, she began, you have protected me for my entire life. You shielded me from gossip, from pity, from expectations that would crush me. I know you did it with love. The Emperor's gaze softened. Amalia, but, she continued, your protection has become a fortress, and I have been locked inside it for years. Lucas watched the Emperor's face shift, the realization striking him with quiet force. Amalia went on, her voice low but unwavering. When Lucas walked into my pavilion by mistake, it was the first time in a long while that someone looked at me, truly looked, without fear, without pity, without calculation. He saw me as a whole person, not a title, not a burden, not someone broken. Lucas felt her words strike the air like gentle lightning. The Emperor looked from her to Lucas. His voice was cautious. "And you returned her admiration?" Lucas stepped forward, respectful but steady. "Your Majesty, I admire your daughter with all my heart. She is strong, intelligent, and kind. Speaking with her has changed me more than I can express." Amalia's breath caught slightly. Lucas continued, "I never intended to cause trouble. I never sought her favor. But the truth is, I care for her deeply." The Emperor's jaw tightened, but not with anger, rather with something like uncertainty. He looked at his daughter again. Amalia added softly, "And I care for him." Silence filled the chamber, heavy but not hostile. The Emperor looked out the window, gathering his thoughts. Amalia spoke again. "Father, I am not asking for your approval of something improper. Lucas has shown nothing but respect. What I ask is simpler and more difficult. Let me choose companionship based on truth, not fear." The Emperor turned back toward them. "Amalia, you are my only daughter. Your happiness is dearer to me than any alliance, any political expectation. But the world outside these walls is unforgiving. If you align yourself with someone of lower station, the court will resist. Society will question your judgment. Even your future security," she interrupted gently. "Father, my future happiness matters more than my future security." He looked wounded. "You think I do not understand happiness?" She softened. "I think you understand duty so deeply that you sometimes forget happiness must be chosen, not granted." The Emperor inhaled slowly, deeply. Lucas felt the moment reaching a delicate edge. Finally, the Emperor addressed Lucas directly. "Mr. Weber, tell me honestly, if allowed, would you stand by her in times of scrutiny? Would you protect her from unkind words, from unjust expectations?" Lucas took a step forward, voice steady. "With everything I am, Your Majesty. Not through force or argument, but through presence, respect, devotion. I would never let her stand alone." Amalia closed her eyes briefly, the emotion too strong to hide. The Emperor studied him with a long gaze that seemed to weigh Lucas's sincerity against the world's harshness. The tension stretched thin, nearly breaking. Then at last, the Emperor exhaled. "Very well." Amalia's head snapped up. The Emperor continued quietly. "I cannot deny your heart, my dear, and I cannot deny what I see in yours, Mr. Weber. Perhaps I have let fear rule more than wisdom. If this companionship offers you both courage and peace, then I will not stand in its way." Lucas felt his breath leave him in a rush. Amalia brought a trembling hand to her lips. The Emperor lifted a warning finger, not harsh, simply protective. "But you must proceed with dignity. The court will not be gentle. Appearances must remain proper. If you court my daughter, you must do so openly, respectfully, and with full understanding of the life she leads." Lucas nodded firmly. "I understand, Your Majesty," Amalia whispered. "Father, thank you." He reached out and touched her shoulder, a rare gesture of tenderness. "You deserve joy, Amalia. I only hope this path leads you to it." Tears shimmered in her eyes as she leaned her cheek into his hand. The Emperor stepped back. "Lady Helena will arrange the announcement. Until then, keep your meetings supervised and appropriate. This is a new path for the family and for the court." "We will," Amalia promised. The Emperor looked at Lucas once more. "And, Mr. Weber, do not forget what world you are stepping into. It will test you." Lucas bowed his head. "I won't forget, Your Majesty, and I won't falter." The Emperor left the chamber quietly, giving them rare privacy. Amalia turned to Lucas. Her voice was a breath of warm disbelief. "Lucas, we did it." He knelt before her, his hands closing around hers. "You did it, Princess. You faced your father with more courage than any soldier could show." She smiled, eyes shining. "And you stood beside me." He held her gaze, feeling the world narrow into the space between them. "Princess Amalia, I meant every word. I care for you, more than I ever expected to care for anyone." Her breath trembled. "Lucas, I thought losing you would break something inside me, but hearing you say these things, it restores everything." He rose slowly, still holding her hands. "May I stay by your side?" Not as a farmer lost in a palace, but as someone who wants to build a future with you, she whispered. Yes, with all my heart. Yes. He leaned closer, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence, the truth of his devotion. She placed her hand gently over his heart, as though grounding herself in the strength she found there. Lucas, she murmured, you make me feel alive again. You make me feel worthy, he replied. She laughed softly, her voice trembling with joy. Then, together, we are complete. They stood like that, hands entwined, the future unfolding around them like a new dawn. The lady-in-waiting watched from the doorway, wiping her eyes discreetly before stepping forward. Your Highness, there is much to prepare. Amalia touched her cheeks, smiling in a way Lucas had never seen before. Radiant, unguarded, free. Then she looked back at him with a tenderness so full it could have lit the room by itself. Walk with me into the gardens, she whispered. He guided her chair through the corridor, down the path and into the open air where their story had begun. The sky above Vienna glowed softly, as if celebrating them. They stopped beside the stone archway, where they had first found courage in each other's presence. Lucas stepped beside her. If I could change anything, I wouldn't. Nor would I, she said softly. Not a single moment. He placed his hand over hers, warm and steady. Amalia, and whatever comes next, whispers, court opinions, expectations, I'll face it with you. She turned her face toward him, love shining openly in her eyes. And I will face everything with you. He leaned closer, and she met him halfway. Their foreheads touched gently, an unspoken promise, tender and full of hope. In that simple closeness, every fear melted. For the first time, their future felt real, bright, and theirs to claim. And in the quiet of the imperial gardens, as the last light of day warmed the sky, Lucas whispered the words he had carried in his heart since the moment he entered the wrong pavilion. Amalia, I love you. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks, like pearls of joy. And I love you, Lucas, with everything I am. The world around them softened into silence, leaving only the two of them. No throne, no titles, no fear, just love. And it was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you like the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories, full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.